Silence can be deafening. It creeps in slowly, not with a bang, but with a subtle shift, the kind you feel before you understand. One day, everything feels good. She's laughing at your jokes, texting you throughout the day, touching your arm when she speaks. You feel that connection, the kind that makes the noise of the world fade out when she's near. It's real. It feels right. Then out of nowhere, things start to change. Messages come slower. Calls become fewer. That light in her eyes dims, just a little. And suddenly, you're stuck wondering what you missed. You scroll back through conversations looking for clues. You start doubting yourself. Was it something you said? Something you didn't? That's when it hits you. The silence isn't just quiet. It's heavy. It fills every corner of your mind, makes you question your worth, your instincts, even the memories that felt so certain. But here's the truth. Silence doesn't always mean she's leaving. It doesn't always mean rejection. Sometimes silence is the sound of a woman watching, not with her eyes but with her soul. She's measuring you, not your words but your reactions. She wants to know what you do when the applause stops. Do you become anxious, needy, desperate for attention? Or do you remain steady? This is the moment that separates the boys from the men. The spotlight is gone. The audience is silent. You're on your own stage now. What will you do with the quiet? Most men panic, send a flood of texts, pour out validation-seeking words, hoping to pull her back. But the one who doesn't chase, the one who stays calm, focused, and still, that's the man who stands out. That's the man she remembers. Because strength in silence isn't weakness. It's presence. The moment she pulls back, most men feel an urge to fix it. They panic, convinced something's wrong, and they need to act fast before she slips away. So they start reaching out. Text. After text, calls she doesn't answer. Apologies for things she hasn't even mentioned. It's not confidence driving them. It's fear. The fear of losing her, of losing control, of facing the silence without knowing what it means. But the truth is, the silence is the test. It's the moment where your reaction says more than any words ever could. And most men fail because they respond out of insecurity instead of strength. What if instead of reacting, you held your ground? What if you didn't fill the silence with noise, but allowed it to speak for itself? When you don't chase, not out, of pride but peace, you send a message that's louder than any desperate call for attention. You show her that your world doesn't fall apart in her absence, that your identity isn't wrapped up in her constant presence. And that's rare. She may not be testing you intentionally, but make no mistake, she's observing, watching how you move when you think she's not watching. If you become anxious, you reveal dependence. If you stay centered, you reveal stability. Your silence, when rooted in confidence, becomes magnetic. It draws her attention in a different way, not through force, but through presence. This isn't about punishing her. It's about not punishing yourself. It's about giving her the space to feel her own emotions without you trying to control the outcome. Because the man who can sit in the unknown, who doesn't rush to fix or force clarity, that man becomes unforgettable. He becomes the one she reconsiders, not because he begged, but because he didn't have to. She's not punishing you. That's what most men get wrong. When she pulls back, they immediately assume it's a game, that she's trying to make them jealous or teach them a lesson. They take it personally and let bitterness take over. The sarcasm starts creeping into their texts. Their tone changes. They assume the worst and act out, trying to regain control of the situation. But what if it's not about control at all? What if her distance isn't about rejection, but reflection? What if she's simply trying to see clearly? Women feel things on a level that goes deeper than logic. They don't always need a reason to pause. They just need a feeling. And when something inside them shifts, even if it's subtle, they step back. Not to punish, but to process. They want to know if what they're feeling is real or just an illusion built on hope. And during that space, they're not looking for a performance. They're looking for consistency, for alignment. They want to know if the version of you they were drawn to is the same version when things get quiet, when the energy isn't being fed. That's why reacting from ego ruins the moment. If you lash out, beg, or guilt her, she sees a man who was only strong when she was present. But if you stay grounded, respectful, and present in your own life, she sees something rare, a man who doesn't crumble without her. That's when she realizes her feelings weren't projected. They were real. Because she sees a man who doesn't need her energy to stay strong, who doesn't rely on her validation to feel worthy. So let her watch. Let her feel what she needs to feel. Because in that space, your true character is revealed. And that's what she's really looking for. Stillness is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. When she pulls away, the instinct for most men is to close the gap immediately. They want to fix the disconnection, to bring things back to how they were. But in doing so, they often interrupt a natural emotional process. A woman's feelings don't operate on a switch. They move like tides, slowly rising and falling. You can't force them, you can't rush them. And trying to do so only pushes her further away. That's where stillness becomes powerful. Not because you do nothing, but because you choose not to do the wrong things. When you sit in the silence without reacting, without chasing, without trying to control the moment, you create space. And, in that space, she can actually start to feel again. She begins to notice the absence of your presence. And if that presence was real and grounded, she'll start to miss it. Not because you manipulated her into missing it, but because your energy carried a calmness she now realizes isn't easy to find. The quiet you hold becomes a contrast to the noise in her world, and that contrast draws her in. Most men don't understand this. They think pulling away means she's gone. But often, she just needs to catch up emotionally. She needs to know her. Feelings are safe to return to, not smothered, not rushed, not demanded. When you remain steady, focused, and respectful of that space, you give her room to choose you again, on her own terms. And that kind of return is real. It's lasting, because it's not built on pressure. It's built on truth. The man who can hold his frame through the quiet shows her something rare, emotional maturity. And that is what makes him unforgettable long after the silence ends. Confidence isn't proven when everyone is cheering for you. It's revealed in the quiet, moments when no one's watching, when the praise is gone, and you're left with nothing but yourself. Most men feel strong only when validation is flowing in, when she's texting back quickly, posting cute stories, engaging with him constantly. But what happens when that validation disappears? That's the real test. That's when most men unravel. They lose momentum, question their worth, and spiral into doubt because their confidence was never rooted in self. It was built on attention. But you take a different path. You stay grounded even when the applause stops. You keep building, keep showing up for yourself, not because anyone's watching, but because it's who you are. That's true confidence. That's discipline. And that energy, steady, unfazed, and internally sourced, hits different. It's what separates a man who needs to be chosen from a man who is already whole. And women feel that. They notice when a man doesn't break under emotional silence. They respect the man who doesn't fall apart when no one is affirming him. She might be watching quietly, checking if your energy shifts without her input. And when it doesn't, when you're still laughing, still grinding, still showing up with purpose, she begins to wonder. Not out of ego, but because true strength is rare. She doesn't see desperation, she sees dignity. And that dignity becomes attraction. If she returns, she comes back to a man who didn't pause his growth waiting for her. And if she doesn't, You didn't lose. You evolved. You built a life that didn't revolve around being chosen. You became undeniable. Because when your rhythm stays the same in silence, when your value is self-generated, that's when you're no longer seeking love from emptiness. You're standing in power.